Under the towering pyramids, a young Egyptian queen gets ready for her wedding night, her hands trembling as priests whisper creepy chants. Did you know that for many queens, this night wasn't about love or joy but a scary test? Old writings say queens had to face dangerous rituals that could even kill them, special tasks to show they were worthy of the gods. Some had to drink weird potions that might bring visions or death. Others worried about jealous rivals plotting to take them down before morning. The risks were huge. One mistake could mean she wasn't fit to rule or could even be sacrificed. What were these frightening rituals, and why did they scare even the strongest queens? Today, we're uncovering the chilling, long-hidden secrets of ancient Egypt's royal wedding nights, secrets so shocking they'll leave you speechless. Prepare to dive into a world of divine trials, deadly betrayals, and unimaginable courage that shaped the fates of Egypt's most powerful women. It's 1479, and the city of Memphis glows under a crimson sunset. The Nile River mirrors the fading light as a young queen, Nefertari, stands in a chamber adorned with golden hieroglyphs. Her breath catches as she adjusts her jeweled headdress, her fingers trembling. Tonight, she will wed Pharaoh Ramesses II, but this is no ordinary wedding. In ancient Egypt, a queen's wedding night was a gauntlet of divine trials, a perilous ritual where failure could mean death. The air hums with the chants of priests, their voices low and ominous, as they prepare Nefertari for a night that will test her body, mind, and soul. In ancient Egyptian culture, pharaohs were living gods, chosen by Ra to uphold Ma'at, the cosmic balance of order and truth. Queens, as their consorts, were expected to be divine in their own right, embodying the goddesses Isis or Hathor. The wedding night was more than a marriage, it was a sacred contract, a moment where the queen had to prove her worthiness to the gods and the court. Ancient texts, like the Book of the Dead, hint at rituals so intense they could break even the strongest spirit. For Nefertari, this night is her crucible, where she must face the gods or lose everything. The first trial, known as the Trial of Ma'at, was a heart-stopping ordeal. Priests presented the queen with a chalice filled with a murky potion, a blend of sacred herbs, animal blood, and, in some cases, diluted venom from an asp. This wasn't just a drink, it was a gamble with fate. The potion was believed to induce visions, a direct line to the god's will. If Nefertari saw Osiris or Hathor in her trance, it was a sign of divine approval. But if the vision was dark, say, of Set, the god of chaos, or if she collapsed from the potion's effects, the priests could declare her unfit. The consequences were dire: exile to a distant temple, or worse, a quiet death disguised as divine judgment. Imagine Nefertari, her heart pounding, as she lifts the chalice to her lips. The bitter liquid burns her throat, and the room spins. She knows the stories: queens who drank and never woke, their deaths blamed on the gods. Ancient records from the 18th dynasty mention a queen, possibly Ankhesenamun, who barely survived this ritual, her vision of a jackal-headed Anubis sparking panic among the priests. The potion's ingredients were a closely guarded secret, known only to the high priests of Ammonius. Some scholars believe it included mandrake or henbane, plants known for their hallucinogenic and potentially lethal properties. One wrong measurement, and Nefertari's wedding night could be her last. But the potion was only the beginning. The Trial of Ma'at also included a sacred dance, performed in a torchlit chamber filled with statues of gods. Nefertari had to move with precision, her steps mimicking the cosmic order, while priests watched for any mistake. A stumble or hesitation could be interpreted as a rejection by the gods, branding her unworthy. The dance wasn't just physically exhausting, it was a mental battle. Nefertari had to suppress her fear, her body aching from hours of preparation, while the court's eyes bored into her. One wrong move, and whispers of her failure would spread through Memphis, threatening her future as queen. The political stakes added another layer of terror. Rival consorts, eager to claim the title of great royal wife, lurked in the shadows. These women, often backed by powerful noble families, could bribe a priest to tamper with the potion or spread rumors of a failed ritual. Nefertari knew this all too well. Her own sister-in-law, a lesser consort, had her own ambitions. The court was a battlefield, and the wedding night was the opening salvo. If Nefertari faltered, her rivals could seize the moment, pushing her aside or worse. The public nature of the rituals only heightened the pressure. Unlike modern weddings, where privacy is cherished, Egyptian royal weddings were spectacles. Nobles, priests, and even foreign emissaries watched from the sidelines, judging the queen's every move. Nefertari had to project divine confidence, even as her stomach churned from the potion and her legs trembled from the dance. A surviving relief from her tomb shows her standing tall, her face serene, but the truth was far darker. She was fighting for her life, her crown, and her place in history. The trial of Maat wasn't just about pleasing the gods, it was about cementing the pharaoh's power. A queen who passed the trials became a symbol of divine approval, strengthening Ramesses' rule. But a queen who failed could destabilize the kingdom, giving rebels or rival factions an excuse to challenge the throne. This is why the wedding night was so feared. It was a high-stakes test where the gods, the court, and the queen's own courage determined her fate. Nefertari's survival that night would make her one of Egypt's greatest queens, but the cost was a night of terror few could imagine. It's 1323 BCE, and the city of Thebes pulses with life. The grand palace of Pharaoh Amenhotep III is decked in lotus flowers and gold, but Queen Tiye, his bride-to-be, feels a chill despite the desert heat. Her wedding night looms, and while the city celebrates, Tiye's eyes scan the crowd for threats. In ancient Egypt, a queen's wedding night wasn't just a divine trial, it was a political minefield, where betrayal could strike from any corner. For Tiye, the real danger wasn't the gods but the humans around her, each with their own agenda. The Egyptian court was a nest of vipers. Queens didn't just marry a pharaoh, they stepped into a world of rival consorts, scheming nobles, and priests with their own ambitions. Egypt's polygamous system meant a pharaoh could have multiple wives, each competing for power. The great royal wife held the highest status, but her position was precarious. On her wedding night, Tiye had to prove herself not just to Amenhotep but to a court that wanted her to fail. Every gesture, every word, was a chance for her enemies to strike. One of the most shocking dangers was assassination. The Turin judicial papyrus, a rare surviving document, details plots to poison queens during their wedding rituals. Rival consorts, often backed by noble families or foreign allies, saw the wedding night as the perfect moment to eliminate a competitor. Tiye might sip her sacred potion, unaware that a rival had slipped aconite, a deadly poison, into the mix. If she died, the priests could blame the gods, and the true culprit would walk free. Ancient records suggest at least one queen, a minor consort of Thutmose III, died under suspicious circumstances on her wedding night, her death quietly buried in the annals. Poison wasn't the only weapon. Gossip was just as lethal. If a rival whispered that Tiye's vision was a bad omen, perhaps of Apophis, the serpent of chaos, it could turn the court against her. Priests, who held immense power, might amplify these rumors, declaring her unfit. Some queens, like Mutnajmet, Nefertiti's sister, faced such whispers and vanished from history shortly after their weddings. Tiye had to be vigilant, watching every servant, every cupbearer, for signs of treachery. The priests of Ammonius were another threat. In Thebes, the priesthood was richer than the pharaoh himself, controlling vast estates and armies of scribes. They used the wedding night to assert their dominance, demanding the queen perform extra rituals to prove her loyalty. One such ritual, etched in a temple inscription at Karnak, involved offering blood to Ammonius Ra. Tiye would slice her palm with an obsidian blade, letting her blood drip onto a sacred altar. If the priests deemed the offering insufficient, they could claim the gods rejected her, sparking a crisis. This wasn't just a ritual, it was a power play, a way for the priests to remind Tiye who really pulled the strings. Tiye's wedding night was a masterclass in survival. She navigated the rituals with grace, but she also played the political game. She cultivated allies among the priests, offering them gifts of gold and land. She kept her rivals close, watching their every move, and even replaced her ceremonial wine with water, suspecting poison. A surviving letter from her reign hints at a foiled plot, where a rival consort tried to sabotage her ritual tools. Tiye's quick thinking saved her life, but it came at a cost. She trusted no one, not even her closest attendants. The pressure to conceive an heir added another layer of fear. In ancient Egypt, a queen's fertility was seen as a sign of divine favor. If Tiye failed to consummate the marriage or produce a child, her rivals could claim she was cursed, undermining her position. This made the wedding night a public performance, with nobles and priests watching for any sign of weakness. Tiye had to balance her fear with poise, knowing one misstep could end her reign before it began. Her success that night cemented her as one of Egypt's most powerful queens, but it was a victory won through cunning and courage. The web of betrayal didn't end with the wedding night. The alliances and enmities forged that night shaped Tiye's reign, forcing her to navigate a court where loyalty was a luxury. Her story reveals a chilling truth. For Egyptian queens, the wedding night was as much about surviving human treachery as it was about pleasing the gods. It was a night where trust was a liability, and every shadow hid a potential enemy. It's 51 BCE, and Alexandria's palace gleams under a moonlit sky. Cleopatra, barely 18, prepares for her wedding night with her brother, Ptolemy XIII. The air is thick with incense, and the chants of priests echo through the marble halls. Cleopatra's heart races, not from love, but from fear. For Egyptian queens, the wedding night was a direct confrontation with the gods, a series of trials that could prove their divinity or doom them to obscurity. Tonight, Cleopatra faces the gods' gauntlet, and the stakes couldn't be higher. In ancient Egypt, the gods were ever present, their will shaping every aspect of life. Queens, as divine consorts, had to prove they were chosen by the gods, especially on their wedding night. These trials, rooted in centuries of tradition, were designed to test a queen's spiritual strength, but they were also terrifyingly dangerous. Failure could mean exile, death, or erasure from history. Cleopatra, known for her brilliance, knew the risks but had no choice. She had to face the gods or lose her throne. One of the most shocking rituals was the Dance of Hathor. Hathor, the goddess of love and fertility, was central to royal marriages, but her favor came at a price. Cleopatra had to perform a trance-like dance in a chamber filled with flickering torches and statues of gods. The dance was grueling, lasting hours, and required perfect precision. Priests watched for any mistake, ready to declare her unworthy if she faltered. The dance was preceded by a potion, likely a mix of lotus, opium, and other psychoactive herbs, that could induce visions or death. Cleopatra, her mind clouded by the potion, had to move with grace, knowing one stumble could end her reign. Ancient sources, like Plutarch's Lives, suggest Cleopatra faced an especially intense version of the dance, surrounded by statues of Anubis, the god of death. The message was clear: the gods were watching, and they were merciless. The potion's effects were unpredictable. Some queens saw divine visions, others succumbed to its toxicity. A surviving papyrus from the Ptolemaic era hints at a queen who died during this ritual, her body quietly removed to avoid scandal. Cleopatra's survival was a testament to her resilience, but it came at a cost. She later wrote of nightmares that haunted her for years. Another ritual, the offering to Anubis, was even more terrifying. Queens were sometimes required to face a sacred animal, a jackal or serpent, believed to embody the god's spirit. Cleopatra had to stand still as the creature was brought close, its eyes glinting in the dark. If she flinched, it was a sign of weakness, proof she wasn't divine. Some texts suggest these animals were trained, but accidents happened. A queen bitten by a venomous snake could die, her death blamed on her own failure. Cleopatra's composure during this ritual likely impressed the priests, but the fear was real. The gods' judgment extended to the visions induced by the potions. A vision of Isis or Osiris was a good omen, signaling divine approval. But a vision of Set or Apophis could spell disaster. Priests, often swayed by politics, could manipulate these interpretations to favor or condemn a queen. Cleopatra, a master of strategy, likely used her charm to influence the priests, ensuring her visions were seen as favorable. Lesser queens weren't always so lucky, some were declared cursed and vanished from records. The public nature of these rituals added unbearable pressure. Nobles and priests watched from the shadows, ready to gossip if Cleopatra faltered. Her ability to project confidence, even while terrified, set her apart. But for many queens, the fear of divine judgment lingered, shaping their reigns and their psyches. The gods' gauntlet wasn't just a test, it was a reminder that even queens were mortal, subject to the whims of fate and the priests who claimed to speak for it. Tiye 1279, and the temple of Karnak looms over the city like a stone giant. Queen Isetnofret, soon to wed Ramesses II, stands before a golden altar, her hands steady but her mind racing. The wedding night is hours away, but Isetnofret's real battle isn't with the gods, it's with the court. In ancient Egypt, a queen's wedding night was a political chessboard, where every move could mean triumph or ruin. For Isetnofret, the night is a test of strategy as much as courage. Queens were more than divine figures, they were political players in a game of alliances, trade routes, and power. Their marriage strengthened the pharaoh's rule, but it also made them targets. Rival families, foreign diplomats, and other consorts saw the wedding night as a chance to undermine the new queen. Isetnofret knew this. She was marrying Ramesses II, a pharaoh with multiple wives, including the formidable Nefertari. The pressure to outshine her rivals was crushing, and the consequences of failure were deadly. One of the most shocking political trials was the test of loyalty. Before the wedding night, Isetnofret had to swear oaths to Ramesses and the gods, pledging her allegiance in front of the court. These oaths were public, and any hesitation could be seen as disloyalty. Isetnofret faced this test under the watchful eyes of Tiye, Ramesses' mother, who favored Nefertari. A single stumble in her words could have branded her a traitor, giving her rivals an excuse to push her aside. Rival consorts were a constant threat. Nefertari, the great royal wife, had her own network of spies and allies. If Isetnofret seemed too ambitious or too weak, Nefertari could spread rumors, painting her as unfit. Some queens faced direct sabotage, tainted food, tampered ritual tools, or false accusations of infidelity. A surviving stele from the 19th dynasty hints at a plot against a lesser queen, who was accused of disrespecting the gods during her wedding night. She was exiled, her name erased from history. The priests of Ammonius were another political force. Their wealth and influence rivaled the pharaohs, and they used the wedding night to assert their power. They might demand extra rituals, like a midnight offering to Ammonius Ra, to test Isetnofret's obedience. Refusing was unthinkable, defying the priests could lead to accusations of heresy, a death sentence. Isetnofret had to balance her loyalty to Ramesses with the priest's demands, a delicate dance that could make or break her reign. The pressure to conceive an heir was another political minefield. A queen's fertility was a sign of divine favor, and failure to produce a child could weaken her position. Isetnofret faced this pressure on her wedding night, knowing the court was watching for any sign of failure. If the marriage wasn't consummated or if no heir followed, her rivals could claim she was cursed, paving the way for Nefertari or another consort to take her place. This made the night a high-stakes performance, where Isetnofret had to project strength while battling fear. Isetnofret's success on her wedding night helped her become a secondary queen, but she never outshone Nefertari. Her story shows the brutal reality of the political chessboard. Queens had to navigate alliances, betrayals, and expectations, all while facing the divine trials of the wedding night. It was a game where one wrong move could cost everything, and only the sharpest survived. It's 1186, and the city of Luxor glows under a star-filled sky. Queen Tawosret, soon to wed Setnacht, stands in a chamber lined with alabaster, her heart heavy with the weight of history. Her wedding night is more than a personal trial, it's a moment that carries the legacy of every queen before her. From Nefertari to Cleopatra, the wedding nights of Egyptian queens shaped their reigns and Egypt's history, leaving a legacy of fear, courage, and power that echoes through the ages. The wedding night was a crucible that forged Egypt's greatest queens. Those who survived, like Tiye and Cleopatra, became legends, their strength born in the terror of that first night. But many others didn't make it. Ancient records are littered with queens who vanished after their weddings, their names erased from monuments. Were they poisoned? Exiled? Sacrificed? The truth is often lost, but their fear lives on in the stories that survived. Tawosret, stepping into her wedding night, knew these tales and felt their weight. The secrecy of the rituals added to the fear. The wedding night's trials were so sacred that they were rarely written down, passed orally among priests to avoid defiling the gods. This secrecy left queens like Tawosret in the dark, relying on vague warnings or whispered tales from older consorts. A surviving papyrus from the 20th dynasty hints at a queen who failed her rituals and was sent to a remote temple, her fate a warning to others. Tawosret had to face these trials with little knowledge, her courage tested as much by the unknown as by the rituals themselves. The legacy of the wedding night also shaped how queens ruled. Those who survived, like Cleopatra, learned to wield fear as a tool. Cleopatra's wedding night with Ptolemy XIII, though a political necessity, gave her the confidence to navigate Egypt's treacherous court. She used her divine status to outmaneuver rivals, becoming a legend in her own right. But the psychological toll was real. Ancient texts suggest some queens suffered nightmares or paranoia after their wedding nights, haunted by the rituals they endured. The wedding night's legacy extended to Egypt's power structure. By putting queens through such intense trials, the priests reinforced their own influence, reminding everyone that the gods' favor came at a cost. This system kept Egypt stable for centuries but also perpetuated a culture of fear, where even the most powerful women lived under scrutiny. Tawosret, who later became a pharaoh, carried the lessons of her wedding night into her reign, using them to navigate a male-dominated world. The courage of Egypt's queens is the true legacy of their wedding nights. They faced death, betrayal, and divine judgment, all while maintaining the grace expected of a goddess. Their stories, hidden for millennia, reveal a truth more shocking than any myth: the wedding night was a battlefield where queens fought for their lives and their legacies. As we look back, we see not just fear but resilience, women who stared down the gods and their enemies to claim their place in history. Their wedding nights weren't just moments of terror, they were the sparks that lit the flames of Egypt's greatest reigns.